Welcome. With active compassion, reason, and respect, empowered to promote a just society, we return again together to create beloved community. One way of doing that work is to remind us that all here in the CSRA, we reside on the lands of the Westco people, the Savannah Shawnees, the Yuki peoples, and the Muskokoke Confederacy. My name is Chris Palmer, and I answer to she, her. Today, Reverend Nick and I are co-creating this space alongside us with music director Joe Patchen and our tech deck, who make us look and sound our best, and all of you. We make this moment together. In person or virtual visitors are more than welcome. If you are joining us via Zoom this morning, I'd like to invite folks to stay on the call for at least a few minutes to share with your co-people. Say hi to each other and enjoy some fellowship time together. If visiting in person, please fill out a blue slip card that you'll find in a seat pocket near you. You can either put it in the collection plate or you can give it to me after the service. This information will help keep us in touch with you and you'll be more connected to us. After the service, stop by our common room for refreshments and conversation. We'll know you by your orange name tag and stop and talk to one of us. Whether here for the first time with the thousands in person or in Zoom, I hope you will get what you need today. We're starting down the final chapter stretch of the fiscal year. Here are some important things that will happen between now and the end of June. First, I'd like to invite Board Treasurer Barbara Bowen to give us an update on the pledge, including the progress we've made toward our goal.
Good morning, everybody. As we're winding up our pledge drive this year, our status at the moment, we have received 70 pledges for a total of $1,062,000, pardon me, 1,062 and $800. Thank you. I don't know why I can't read numbers today. We are expecting and hoping for about 20 to 25 more pledges to come in before we end up. But right now, we're about $35,000 short of our goal for our budget this year, and at least $20,000 short of even a bare bones budget. So if any of you out there have not made your pledge yet, please go ahead and do so as soon as possible so that our finance committee and our minister and the board can come up with our budget for this coming year. And for those of you who have made a pledge, if you can consider giving a little bit more, we would greatly appreciate it. But as it is, we want to thank everybody out there who has pledged, and all of you who have donated, thank you very much.
Thank you, Barbara. Also, thank you to everyone who helped with the campus cleanup yesterday. The grounds are looking great and ready for spring. A special thank you to Richard Dillenbach, Bill Webster, and Hans Nitsch for the copious amount of extra work they put into not only making the space pretty, but accessible too. I wonder if anybody or anybody's might be willing to offer the church some gifts of honor in their names as an expression of gratitude. Reverend Nick is privileged to be a part of a conversation about the future of reproductive rights and reproductive justice with some experts on the subject from around the country. The panel discussion will be on March 23rd at 6 p.m. in room 170 of University Hall on the Somerville campus of Augusta University. Look for more information on Realm, e-announcements, and Facebook. The very next day, UUCA is partnering with the Equality Clinic, which many of you may know as an LGBTQ+ friendly health clinic in town. On March 24th from 6 to 8 p.m., we're hosting a resource fair here put together by the clinic. At the end of this series of events, they're holding to support the health and welfare of our LGBTQ+ friends and neighbors. You're more than welcome to attend and learn about the resources and are certainly encouraged to let folks who might benefit most from it know about it too. There'll also be an HIV testing bus parked in the parking lot during the event. Rounding out a week full of justice events, we've been invited to attend a rally in solidarity of the LGBTQ+ communities at the Aiken University of South Carolina campus. USC has invited an anti-LGBTQ and pro-gay conversion speaker, and a student and interfaith coalition will be holding a vigil at the same time in response. For a good thing, tickets are now available for our March Final Friday Jazz program featuring Ed Fuqua Quartet on March 31st. If you're interested, head to uuaugusta.org/jazz to register and purchase. Please share the event on our Facebook page, on your Facebook page, to help get the word out. There is also a number of flyers around the building that are free for you to take and share. And if you've been here at the last one, you'll know how great they are and how successful it was. You don't want to miss out on that. Finally, thinking about how you might contribute to the UUCA auction this year, which will take place on May 6th. It'll be a garden party themed event entitled Make Our Garden Grow. Our fantastic auction team is already working hard planning what should be a wonderful event with a combination of performances, live auction items, raffle prizes, which will help make the event more equitable. This is primarily a service auction. Folks from the congregation will offer services like meals, private concerts, and even international vacations. If you donated last year, you can expect a call from the team to see if you are willing to donate again. And it was very successful last time. We hope it'll be as successful this time.
Quoting Brené Brown, vulnerability is not knowing victory or defeat. It's understanding the necessity of both. It's engaging. It's being all in. As we light this flame and begin worship in earnest, may we practice engaging. May we be all in together. And for our first hymn today, we're kind of all going to be in a way, but it's going to be more of a solo with our special guest singer, Lena Bracci. I'm really excited to hear her sing this. And as she sings, you all are invited to hum alongside her. So we won't put the lyrics up for this one, Daniel, just so you know. But feel free to hum along and enjoy some wonderful singing.
Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child, a long way from home, a long way from home. Sometimes I feel like I have no friend. Sometimes I feel like I have no friend. Sometimes I feel like I have no friend. A long way from home. A long way from home. Sometimes I feel like I'm almost gone. Sometimes I feel like I'm almost gone. Sometimes I feel like I'm almost gone. A long way from home.
Hello, I'm Marika Bhattacharya, and I'm a member of your pastoral care team. This is the time in our service when we share the joys and sorrows that have come into our lives in the past week or so.
Topic of vulnerability. So let's go ahead and watch this film and this little short 3-minute video, and then we'll have a chat.
So what is empathy, and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant, and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then we look and we say, hey, you can climb down. I know what it's like down here, and you're not alone. Sympathy is, ooh, it's bad, no, you want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with at least. Yeah. And we do it all the time. Because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So, I had a miscarriage. Oh, at least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, I don't even know what to say right now, I'm just so glad you told me. Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
So, kids, has there ever been a time where you have felt a certain kind of way, lonely or sad or pretty unhappy, and somebody tried to make it better for you? And if so, how'd that feel? Go ahead, Jim.
Sometimes people don't like me at school, and I really feel sad about that. So one time I heard one of my classmates say he hated me. So there's like this place in my school where I like to go when I'm sad, and I went there, and I stayed there for a long time. And then my friend came and comforted me, and I felt better.
I'm really sorry that that's happening to you. Did you have your hand up? Did you want to answer the question? Yeah.
Sometimes, like, conversations can be sad sometimes, but then some other people can help you get happy. So one time, I was having my birthday, and I asked one of my friends, could you come? And they said, no, sorry, I have to go somewhere. so I felt disconnected. But one of my other friends came and they said, I'll go. And so they went, and we had a really good time at my birthday party.
Can I share a story about when someone else was sad and I comforted them? Okay.
Actually, yes. My next question is kind of related to the first one, which is where have you ever been able to use the grief or loneliness or sadness or any other injuries you've experienced to help you connect more with other people as they are experiencing those things? So has there ever been a time where you felt so strongly what the other person was feeling that you were able to really be with them?
When when I was really little, like very, very small, I liked a guy and he didn't like me back. And it was heartbreaking for me at the time because I was like in maybe second grade. And so my friend Evelyn had a crush on a guy, and she finally mustered up the courage to tell him. And he said that, yeah, he liked her back. And then halfway through the year, it was figured out that he had lied to her to make her feel better. And he was talking to his friends and like gossiping about her. And I feel like it's not too strongly, but like I was able to comfort her in that situation, and now we both hate him.
Second grade drama is real, y'all. So even when there's disconnection that happens, is what I'm hearing from you two, that can, like, being vulnerable still allows connection to happen, maybe with somebody else, which I think is a really nice thing. So empathy, like compassion, which is named in our mission statement as a core practice of this church, is about experiencing the highs and lows with other people. That compassion means with somebody else's feelings. Being open to our own challenges without escaping from them helps us to practice both empathy and compassion more fully and more richly. So I hope you take that with you all today as you go continue your faith formation with Miss D. So we'll sing you out. Today we're going to have an extended period of silence for our meditation time. And during this time, I invite you to silently reflect on what parts of you that you hide from others. What raw emotions might you be scared to share and be open about? Maybe consider what story is in your head that repeats itself, saying you have to hide those real pieces of yourself. Try to name specific feelings, feeling words in your head and heart as they emerge and as you reflect. Let's enter into about 4 minutes now of silence, followed by Joe adding some music to round out our quiet moment together. God bless.
Yesterday, I had the privilege of working with a wonderful group of people here in this church, dedicated people who care and love this church, as we all do. It takes a lot of work to keep the grounds well and keep the building going, and to have a place that people can come and feel compassion and feel caring and feel loved. This church means that much to me and to most of us here. In order to keep our doors open, to welcome people, to make them feel welcome, to make them feel wanted and needed, to show empathy and love to people, we also need financial support. So I'm asking you now to please donate what you can and are willing and able to give, to keep these doors open and to keep the love flowing through this church and through our community. We do a lot for the community outside, and we do a lot for our members. And I'm going to ask the ushers to please come up.
We come from the fire, living in the fire. Go back to
Those who know me pretty well know that I like to perhaps over-prepare. It comes from a background of studying classical music and having a score in front of me that I can see all the parts all together and know what's coming up, know when it ends. I also think many of you probably know that I love jazz. And that jazz is the way I aspire to be in life, not necessarily the way that is most natural for me. And today, I'm living into the jazz side of me. I have not scripted this sermon. So, bear with me. This is me leaning into potential shame, potential, almost certain vulnerability hangover, and I'll tell you what that means in a second. This is me practicing the path of vulnerability as taught by Dr. Brené Brown. And it's going to be hard, and I'll do the best I can. So I've mentioned Brené Brown a couple times today. It was also on the title of the service. And I know there are at least a few people here who came specifically because we're talking about Brené Brown. Brené Brown is a hero of mine. I've called her a prophet before, meaning that she is able to say how things can and should be in the future. And the thing about prophets, especially for us UUs, is that we need a degree of reason to believe that prophecy. And Brené Brown is first and foremost a researcher, somebody who has done decades of data collection, of looking into the stories of people and finding patterns on which she can rely and on which she can stake her professional life on promoting to a very large group of people. You may or may not have seen some of the TED Talks that she's done. She's been on a variety of different interview type shows as well. She's sought after by corporations for the work she's done. But that very first kind of introduction to the world that she had was a TED Talk about 13 years ago now that has had nearly 20 million views. She was nervous about the potential of about 700 views when she first put it out there. I'm pretty sure she's surpassed that at this point. The interesting thing about being a prophet is that Brené Brown is also a social worker. She has 3 degrees in social work, the lens through which she's done all of her research. And so in this instance, as in a lot of instances among my colleagues, among clergy, is that the prophetic is the pastoral. They're one and the same. That she has done a really good job of explaining to the masses of how we can be more connected, feel more connected, be more courageous, and live into the fullness of each of our lives. The wholeness of each of our lives as an individual and within community. And so I think we need to talk about what vulnerability is and what shame is in this instance. Dr. Brown says the definition of vulnerability is uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure. You know, like doing a sermon without any scripts. But she says vulnerability is not weakness. and the uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure we face every day are not optional. Our only choice is a question of engagement. How much do we lean into the vulnerability? Our willingness to own and engage with our own vulnerability determines the depth of our courage and the clarity of our purpose. The level to which we protect ourselves from being vulnerable is a measure of our fear and disconnection. And so the opposite side of vulnerability, the thing that keeps us from being vulnerable, is shame. Shame, the feeling that we are not good enough, that we as an individual lack in something. This is different than guilt. Guilt is the feeling that you did something wrong. It has less connection to the being of us. There are some religions that are a little known for leaning into the guilt side of things. We don't do that here. And a sense of guilt every once in a while when harm has been caused isn't necessarily a bad thing, especially if you rectify the thing. However, shame is a core disappreciation of the essence of us. And it prevents us from really living into who we can be and who we can be in relationship. And so, this question of vulnerability and shame and relationship, how does vulnerability connect us? How does shame disconnect us? Vulnerability connects us, kind of like we learned earlier from the video that we watched with the kids. It allows us to be real and raw and authentic with each other in a way that hopefully allows honest, faithful, deep connection and communication and presence, of knowing that it might hurt when you go in to a relationship. And boy, that is scary. Every day, it takes vulnerability for us to return again to the relationships that we hold most dear. I know that it is not a sure thing that Janaea and I will spend the rest of our lives together. I hope it is. And the thought of losing that is horrendous. The thought of losing a friendship is terrible. The thought of losing somebody with whom you thought you were really close to, but because something was left unsaid, you do in fact lose that person. And that's the tricky bit here, is that it's more likely that we'll realize the loss that we fear if we don't share those deepest feelings and fear. It's the shame of saying that you fear the thing, or saying that you feel terrible about a certain thing, that ultimately puts a divide. It breaks down bridges between people. So we've already talked about the difference between shame and guilt. But how does empathy relate? A video earlier, I think, was a very concise and clear way of saying how we can be better friends, better family, better community members to folks who are clearly hurting. Again, it's this openness to moving into the valley with them as they travel through their lives. And certainly not trying to fix the thing right away. That won't work. It's Pastoral Care 101 right there. If you come in and if you have the answer to fix the person's situation, it's almost certain that they're not going to feel heard in their pain. And if they don't feel heard in their pain, probably not going to share it again next time. Then you have more divide. So again, this prophecy of Brené Brown is also very much pastoral. Our mission statement is to create a beloved community. That first verb that's in our mission statement is create, creativity, creation, the making of something out of other things, something else from nothing but, as one of my favorite theologians, Dr. Ursula Goodenough, says. This notion of emergence, active emergence. And that's what vulnerability also allows, especially in our context of trying to create beloved community. When we enter into vulnerability, when we enter into authenticity, genuineness, laying bare the things that are weighing on our souls, we create. Brené Brown talks a lot about this in the context of corporations and businesses, and we're kind of business adjacent here. But that ability to be vulnerable allows for creativity and innovation, and for the coolest things to emerge.
Thinking about.
Yes? I think Zoom was trying to be vulnerable just now. Now, I mentioned the vulnerability hangover earlier, and I will absolutely have this. I have a vulnerability hangover even if I do script everything. Janaea can probably share like the instant we're at home together. Did I do it okay? Do you think it was meaningful for folks? And today, oh my goodness, Janaea, you have a lot on your plate. Brené Brown says this about vulnerability hangover. One concept that emerged across the interviews is what I call the vulnerability hangover. It directly relates to our fear of vulnerability, and unfortunately, most of us have experienced it. We have all been in situations where we're with a friend, colleague, or family member, and we feel that deep yearning to connect. And despite the fear, we feel that push or need to share something meaningful. And before you know it, we've let it all out. We've told them everything, shared our deepest vulnerabilities. The next hour, day, or week, that feeling of regret comes over us like a warm wave of nausea. Oh my God, why did I tell her that? What's she gonna think about my family? Who's she gonna tell? That's vulnerability hangover. Has anybody ever experienced that before here? Yeah. I appreciate the vulnerability you just shared with me. Thank you. And so how does this all connect to faith, to our faith? I know that you've heard me say, many of you have heard me say before, kind of my definition of faith, that is kind of twofold, kind of this two sides of the same coin. Faith is how we practice being with each other. We act in good faith with one another. The other aspect of faith is that thing that grounds us most despite all of our lives' trials and tribulations. The thing that helps us keep moving. It holds us tight. And so vulnerability in this context allows us to practice better good faith with each other. It allows us to enter an honest space more fully, which I think allows me to trust you and you to trust me more and all that. But it also, I think, shows, when you are able to be vulnerable, it shows a sense of faith despite the possibility of vulnerability, hangover, and potential harm and the risk that you put into it. It shows a sense of faith that it will be okay. It shows, perhaps most importantly in our context, a sense of worthiness. Brené Brown talks a lot about the underlying factor that the folks who are most able to be vulnerable share, which is this sense of worthiness. And our first principle as Unitarian Universalists is that we affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every human being, including ourselves. It's a little bit harder to do, isn't it? It's harder to know that I am full of worth than it is to say, yes, you are full of worth. Yes, you are full of worth. Yes, this room is full of people of worth. This world, every single person in it, worthy. Well, what about me, though? And the strange thing is, if we're going to be practicing good faith with each other, if we're not giving ourselves the same love and care, the same trust, sense of worthiness as others, are we really genuinely giving it to others? I love to remind folks that 3 out of the 4 times that the Golden Rule is used in the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, the Christian Gospels, are not the do unto others as you would have them do to you. It's the other version, which is love others as you love yourself. And I prefer that version a lot. If we can't love others, if we can't love ourselves, it's going to be nearly impossible to truly feel and do love for others. And so I'm going to start to wrap us up today, and there are so many things that I'm going to talk to myself about today after this that are like, oh, I didn't say that. That would have been a good thing to say. But here's the good news. Next week is kind of the second couplet of today. It's looking a little bit more at the systemic issues that make this whole conversation a little more complicated. But before we do that, I'm going to end with one final quote from Brené Brown. Again, vulnerability is not weakness, she says. It's our most accurate measure of courage. Courage being to speak from the heart, courage, the story of our hearts. When the barrier is our belief about vulnerability, the question becomes, are we willing to show up and be seen when we can't control the outcome? When the barrier to vulnerability is about safety, the question becomes, are we willing to create courageous spaces so each of us can be fully seen? And that's how we move into next week, where we talk a little bit more about how we might create the space so that everyone can enter that truly courageous place. So when we are vulnerable and engage compassionately, empathetically, and courageously with ourselves and each other, we become more whole. Our heart enters a whole and holy place. May our hearts, each of our hearts, be in and create a holy space with each other each and every day. Blessed be.
please rise in body or spirit for hymn number, applause, please. Rise in body or spirit for hymn number 1008, When Our Heart is in a Holy Place.
As I share one final reading from the good prophet Brené Brown. Owning our story can be hard, but not nearly as difficult as spending our lives running from it. Embracing our vulnerabilities is risky, but not nearly as dangerous as giving up on love and belonging and joy, the experiences that make us the most vulnerable. Only when we are brave enough to explore every part of our story will we discover the infinite power of our lives.